Hello and welcome, you glorious gits, to Barely Tactical. I'm Sean, and we have another faction focus. This time, it's one of my favourites. It's the Skaven, who are little rat people who love to kill everything in a hail of warp fire and warp bullets and plague catapults and stuff like that. They are bloody glorious. As always, there is a disclaimer. I'm no expert at Total War games. I'm also no expert on Warhammer lore. So if I miss anything or get anything wrong, please do feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you want to let me know about the lore behind some of these characters, again, do feel free. I love reading this stuff and learning it. And I think I've rambled enough. Let's just crack straight on. So, first in the roster for the Skaven, Queek Headtaker of Clan Moors. Queek has the ability to steal a percentage of XP earned from other lords. He has a loyalty of -2 for Grey Seers, melee attack plus 10% when fighting greenskins and dwarves, a plus 10% weapon strength when fighting greenskins and dwarves as well. He has a -50% upkeep for clan rats and storm vermin in his army. And he gets +2 menace below in his army. He starts off with a warp lightning cannon, which is a bloody good unit. And also the cost reduction on clan rats and storm vermin mean you will have a bit of a stronger front line than any of the other lords, to be totally honest. He's generally seen as a good, straightforward learning campaign for a beginner with the Skaven, definitely going down the route of the Vortex, not Mortal Empires, in which you've got a very hard time. But that's pretty much all I can say about Queek. So now we have Lord Skronk of Clan Pestilence. I'm sure this little git has something to do with the events of this year, so we might want to have a word with the bugger. Now, he comes with the chance of spreading plague is increased by 100%. He has plagues bolster your forces and nurture your settlements instead of doing harm to them. Construction cost of -50% for Pox Cauldron, Pestilent Nave, and Plague Bailey buildings. An upkeep of -50% for Plague Monks, Censer Bearers, Plague Claw Catapults, and Plague Priest units in his army. He also comes with corruption of +3, Skaven corruption that is, in his local province. He starts off with a Plague Claw Catapult, which is going to be your bread and butter for a lot of range damage for quite some time, so that's handy having that right off the bat. Also, the reduced upkeep for Plague Monks means you could mix them in with your front line, giving yourself a little bit more survivability, but it's generally not really advised with how the Skaven play, but we'll cover that later on. But that's pretty much it. Now, who is the next squeaky little man? Now, Treach Craventail of Clan Rictus. He comes with a suitable climate of Frozen, an unpleasant climate of the jungle, a public order of +4 whenever a diplomatic treaty is broken, a melee attack of +13 during ambushes in his army, a melee attack of 13 after retreating when attacked in his army, and he has the attribute of Vanguard deployment for all units in his army. He starts off as well with Doom Will, which isn't a bad unit, it's pretty good. Not recommended in most of the Doom stacks, but hey, if you want to mess around with them, they're still pretty fun and pretty effective. As the name suggests, he's not exactly the most brave rat on the field. He gets a lot of buffs from either ambushing or running away, and also being sneaky and deceptive by breaking diplomatic treaties and things like that, which is an interesting mechanic for the Skaven. And that's pretty much it. So, the next on our list. And now we have Ikitclaw of Clan Skyer. Easily my favourite Skaven Lord. He's pretty damn awesome. He comes with being able to access the Clan Skyer Forbidden Workshop. He has the research rate increase of 20%. He's got +2 loyalty for new recruits. Construction cost -40% for engineering buildings. He starts the campaign with a Warp Storm Doom Rocket. He has a -50% upkeep cost for Warplock Jezzails, Rattling Gunners, and Warp Fire Thrower weapons teams in his army. He also has a recruit rank of +2 for weapons teams units in his army, which is pretty damn nice. Now, the Forbidden Workshop is something which allows you to buff up weapons teams, which is absolutely insane. And the Doom Rocket is a nuke. So we've got a rat who loves shooty things and nukes. I approve. Now, last Rat Lord. And now, last but not least, Deathmaster Snikch. I think that's how you pronounce it. Probably butchered it. Now, he is the leader of Clan Eshin, and he has access to the Clan Eshin Shadowy Dealings menu. He has a recruitment cost of +200% for all non-Eshin units, a clan loyalty, which means Clan Eshin lords never defect. Night Runners and Gutter Runners use armor-piercing and warp-infused projectiles. He has an ambush success chance of 25% extra in his army. He's got a melee attack of +8 for embedded heroes in his army. And he also has the ability of concealment bombs. He starts off with Gutter Runners and Eshin Triads, which are some pretty good units, especially for Eshin. Eshin is probably the main faction that plays very differently from all of the other Skaven. He obviously has the huge penalty for not using the sneaky stabby tree of recruitment, so that's kind of where your main focus is going to want to lie with this boy. He also has contracts for taking out certain enemies or occupying certain regions, which will then grant you various buffs and various allegiances throughout the game. He's definitely an interesting way of playing the Skaven because he does focus on more the sneaky stabby element of the Skaven, which is a really interesting one. But I think that's pretty much all I can say on the Shadowy Lord himself. So now a general overview of how the Skaven play in battle. They are all about ranged and artillery, so that's going to be your biggest focus with using them in the campaign. Warp fire throwers are good for early ranged, but then you do get better options incredibly quickly afterwards, which are the rattling gunners and the warplug Jezzails. Once you've got those, you've really got the ball rolling on hitting some really high damage with ranged units. That being said, your front line is pretty much expendable. You're going to be blowing the crap out of the enemy, but also destroying your front line, but you won't really care too much because, let's face it, they're only Skaven slaves, and they're going to be cheap and very quick to recruit. They'll break very easily, so you're going to want numbers over anything else, and probably staggering your formations is the better way to go for holding enemies back for a maximum length of time, whilst your weapons teams and your artillery units can chip away and do some major damage. Plague Claw catapults are brilliant artillery. Warp lightning cannons are also very good, and you'll also want the poison wind mortars for when you're sieging larger settlements because they make things so much bloody easier, and they are extremely strong units as well. And that's pretty much it. As earlier on, like I said with Eshin, they are the only ones who have an exception to this. You'll be wanting to mainly use Clan Eshin units, using like the Gutter Runners and Night Runners. They get the advantage with Eshin of becoming armor piercing and having warp infused projectiles, so they will do more damage. They will perform better under Snick or whatever his bloody name is. So they're the only ones who will vary. Every other lord will end up going to the same sort of setup, which is pretty much fully ranged with a few cannon fodder units to hold the enemy at bay. And I think that covers the battle tactics of the Skaven. So now we're going to take a look at our first unique mechanic, which is Undercities. This is a settlement that you can build underneath your enemies' settlements, and you can use it to siphon off food, or you can use it to siphon off gold, or even launch an attack from underneath. Now the main use for this, as many players will tell you, will be siphoning food. Food is a very important piece of your economy, but we'll cover that in another little bit. Now You can also use it to siphon gold off from very rich enemies, which can be useful, but it's been nerfed from what I've been told, so it's not as effective as it used to be. You need to balance out the buildings that you put in there. You have buildings that reduce your discoverability so that the enemy doesn't realize that you're stealing stuff from underneath them. And then you will have your buildings which you are siphoning out the resources from your enemy. There is also the ability to build a very, very big bomb that reduces the settlement to nothing, which is pretty nice, but is very risky because it basically instantly shows up. So it's very hard to carry out from what I've experienced anyway. So I think that covers the Undercity. Now we can move on to the next little bit. So now to cover how the economy and the tech tree looks with the Skaven. So with their economy, it's pretty damn strong once you know what you're doing. The best approach for the Skaven is basically you want to go as wide as you possibly can. Pretty much all of the buildings produce gold for Skaven, including city walls, which is very useful, but it doesn't produce a lot. So hence you want to have a lot of settlements because this will stack up and be really useful. Now the tech tree itself is pretty straightforward. Initial parts of the tree that are important are locked behind certain building requirements. Nothing is locked behind gold. It's pretty self-explanatory. So the Skaven have an ability known as stalking. Now this is a stance that allows you to move around the map whilst giving the ability to ambush your enemies. This can be incredibly useful once leveled up properly. Well, not the actual thing, but your character leveled up properly, because you can get a good percentage chance on having an ambush being successful, which means you can pick off enemies pretty quick without requiring lightning strike, which is a very popular rush tactic. And that's pretty much all I can say on that. So now, food and loyalty. Now food, as I said earlier on, is one of the most important resources to the Skaven. The reason for this is predominantly because of the fact it allows you to once you capture a settlement, it then gives you the option to level it up. So you can capture it and straight away put it to the maximum tier. Now this costs food. Now it costs a lot of food as well, which isn't the easy part. Generating food is generally quite difficult. You can use a pasture building to get it. There are certain perks which will allow you to generate a little bit more food, but the main thing is going to be undercities, which once you start whacking them out, you will bring in tons of food, and that means you'll be able to take settlements and capture them at tier 5 or tier 3. You know, that's going to save you an absolute shed load of gold, which you can then pour into armies instead of having to wait. So it's a really useful thing to be siphoning off food. That's pretty much all I can say on that one. Now, as for the loyalty system, this is something where the Skaven, once you recruit a second lord or third lord or whatever, they will have a little ring next to their name, meaning how loyal they are to you, how likely they are to be your friend and hold your hand, that sort of thing. Well, once it gets low enough, they will betray you and they will go against you and become rebels. So essentially, you don't want people being disloyal. You can raise it through letting them win battles. There's also certain perks that will allow you to grant more loyalty for a set amount of turns. You also get events that pop up throughout the campaign, which, depending on what you pick, will have a either adverse effect to the loyalty, or it will have a positive effect to the loyalty. And I think really that's it. Now that pretty much wraps up the Skaven. I've only missed out one mechanic, which is the plague mechanic, which kind of speaks for itself. It allows you to spread plagues between settlements, which can cause attrition. They also have a negative effect on construction time and also income made within the settlement. I haven't covered it massively because I kind of feel like it's only really useful with one of the Skaven factions, which, when we get round to doing separate Lord videos, I will probably go into much deeper detail then. That being said, I absolutely love the Skaven. They're easily one of my favorite factions. They have some really good units and some really fun units on top of that. They're an absolute nightmare to play against, but they are brilliant to play as. I can't really say much more than that. If you want to see what the next faction focus will be, make sure you drop by the Twitch channel, because I tend to do each campaign for a faction over on Twitch, one lord per stream sort of thing. So you'll get a good sneak peek of what's coming up, and you might be able to influence how I see things, maybe. Ooh. Anyway, if you want to catch that, please feel free to leave a like or a comment or whatever. It all helps massively. I can't thank you guys enough for hanging out with me. I absolutely love making this content. It's absolutely brilliant, and I can't wait to bring some more new stuff for you. I'm still waiting to hear about the Wood Elf DLC. Hopefully I'll hear about that soon. I'll shut up now, and feel free to check out the links below. Goodbye, you glorious gits.